Hello and welcome to Stud's Guide to Resource Management. So, I know that we've discussed this a little bit in previous fighting games, but I wanted to have an actual week dedicated to this, so we're going to do it. So, one of the big things that you can do when you're playing a fighting game, once you've sort of got the basics down, is you can start looking at resources and paying attention to what is available for your opponent, because that will help to inform your decision making. So in this game there's actually quite a few things going on. Obviously the biggest, most obvious gauge that we have to look at for our resources is the hit points. So you can see that everybody always starts off the round with full hit points, and then it'll go down, but you don't get to know exactly how much they have. Unlike some games where you kind of get like a little indicator, like KOF or most of the NRS games. In this game, you kind of just have to eyeball it. You can see that although it isn't running right now, the next gauge is the round time. That is a resource. Then you have your burst gauge, which is a resource that you either have or don't, but it generates over time, and you can see how long it regenerates. And then underneath that is another bar called the risk gauge, which basically increases the more that you have to block, and the higher it goes, the more damage bonus it gives to a hit once that hit finally hits you. So it punishes you for blocking for too long, but only up to a certain amount. Once it's reached that amount, it's just there, and then it's not really like an issue anymore, I guess. It's still an issue in that you have to deal with it, but not in that blocking is going to make it worse. So for the majority of the time, it is a perfectly cromulent way to try to make it so that you want to get out of pressure when possible, as quickly as possible. So, you want to be making guesses as early in strings of moves as you feel like you can, which helps to make it so that the mix-up game is more interesting. And then, of course, down below at the bottom, we have the tension gauge, which is this game's super meter. And when that fills up, you can do all kinds of interesting things. Obviously, you have supers that you can do, which are kind of the gold standard, but you can also use RCs, the Roman cancel mechanic that lets you cancel out of anything that you're doing, and you can use that to dash forward or dash backwards or see what an opponent is doing, or use it as an alpha counter while you're blocking, or use it to extend combos. Or it's really good. Makes something safe that would normally be unsafe, and it also allows you to use a special type of blocking called faultless defense, which is usually just referred to as FD. And this has got a couple of useful attributes to it as well. The first is that it pushes an opponent further away, which can help with things such as the risk gauge. If you push them further away, then they may not be able to continue their string, and so you won't take as much risk. Or it might even make it so that they whiff your button, a button, and then you get a free punish out of it, which is pretty cool. And finally, it can make it so that while you're dashing, normally if you run forward and then stop, you'll see that there's a little animation when I stop where Mei continues to go forward and then kind of screeches to a halt. But she's still moving forward, which makes it difficult to actually get exactly where we want to. And we'll try not to get danger here so that we can show it. But if we do faultless defense, we can actually just stop wherever we want to. And the beautiful thing about dashing forward is that it always gives you meter. So at any point in time, if you dash forward, you can see we just start generating tiny little bits of meter. But if all you're using it for is to, and you see that obviously when we're in danger, we gain less tension. But you can see that as we run forward, we gain the tension. And so any amount of running forward, even under danger, allows us to instantly sort of stop where we want to be, and then immediately, take actions, which is really cool. So I haven't really played this a lot, but you see you can stop neutral jump, so you can do all kinds of cool things with that. And I haven't really started playing with that, and that's not really what we're going to be doing this week. But it's just another way that you can use your bar and make use of a resource. So what we're going to be doing is just sort of going through the basics of each of the resources, and then some of them are kind of inherent and obvious, and if you played fighting games, you know them already. But some of them can be really important to be paying attention to, and that's what we're going to be trying to do, is pay attention to the gauges and let those gauges inform our decisions. So how do we do that? Well, let's start with the HP gauge. So when we're starting off at round start and you've got full hit points, that's when both of you have full hit points here, this doesn't really mean much of anything, right? You just want to start the round and make your guess. I think he's going to far slash, so I'm going to 6P to beat it. Alright, cool. But let's say we're in a different position. Let's say that we're in, let's say this position. Oh, there's one more resource that we can't see here that we are going to talk about as well, and that resource is the round counter. So you can't see it here, but let's say that it looks a little bit more like this. Now, if we get hit here, do we want to burst? And I would argue that the majority of the time the answer is yes, and if there is a round counter, you can use that to make your choices as well. But let's say this is round 1 to make it easy. So if we burst here, we're not going to have our burst in the next round. But from this position, we've already done more work than our opponent. If we get hit here and we can successfully get off a burst, then we have a good chance of winning this round by resetting that position and even knocking down our opponent and having a slightly advantageous position on them here. And if this is actually the amount of tension he's got, Sol has got a fairly limited amount of reversal options. He's got a very fast button and he's got a DP, but both of those can get grabbed. So if you're expecting some crazy mash out option, Mei's command throw is just going to beat like everything he can do there. And it's just going to be, you have different options that you can choose now. So in this instance, if we're just paying attention to the health bars, I would burst here most of the time, because I have a really good chance of winning this round, and that burst allows me a second chance that I might not get. Another resource that we haven't really talked about yet is screen position. So if I'm here and I get hit by Sol, I know that, like, slash into heavy slash into super here, into Tyrant Rave, is just going to kill me because it's Sol. So, and that may not be true with Mei because she's actually got pretty good guts, but like chances are I'm either dead here or I'm through the wall with a pixel and now he's gaining some meter back really fast and now it's really scary. If we are over here, maybe I take the hit. Maybe I'm okay with being in mid-screen with a, a little bit of a life deficit, but not a lot. So maybe that's okay. But let's have the same situation. Am I going to burst or not? But let's change up some hit point values a little bit. Let's say that it looks a little bit more like this. Alright. Do I want to burst this attack? So I've got enough hit points to survive the heavy slash here, and if I'm really fast, I can burst it. Maybe I give myself even a little bit more HP. Like, let's give myself this much. Okay, he has to hit me twice, or he has to hit me once and go straight into super here to kill me before I get a chance to choose to burst. And he doesn't have super. So I get to choose if I'm bursting here all the time, 100% of the time. Do I want to burst here? I would say that the answer is probably no, and I don't think that the screen position matters anymore. I don't think I would burst here, I don't think I would burst here, I don't think I would burst here. If I'm not bursting here, there's a chance that he doesn't have a combo good enough to kill me here. So if he doesn't have meter, it's unlikely, but possible that he can't set up like a clean hit DP on the conversion that he gets, depending upon the spacing of the moves. And if he can't, I might actually survive this, and so I get another chance at life anyway. And if I don't, then that's okay, because there's another round still. We're still on round 1. But if I do burst, then it puts me in a different situation. Let's look at the situation it puts me in. It puts me in this situation. So now after bursting, it looks like this. Is this a good situation for me now? No, right? That was a hero burst, right? That was a try to steal back the round burst. And if this is the third round, right, or the final round for you, if you've lost one round already, hero bursting makes a lot of sense. You have to try to make the comeback, and you've got nothing to lose. Try to do the burst, or at least use the burst there occasionally, so that sometimes when you don't use the burst, they try to bait it, and then you stay alive. So that will be really good for you. But if it's round 1 here and we're doing this burst, we are in trouble, because we start the next round with no burst, and chances are we still lose this round, right? Similarly, if we kind of reverse the situation, okay, if we get a hit from here, and Soul goes for a burst, or sorry, if we get hit here and we go for a burst, if Soul hits us here and we go for a burst, is that really a good thing? It could be. It depends. So if we're trying, if we're here in this position, there is a solid argument for bursting, which is that the burst will keep Soul in the corner, which allows you to keep your pressure going, which will help you to win the round. So that's certainly a possibility, and if he had a little bit more HP than this, it would become a very powerful possibility. But if we're getting hit here by Soul, do I really want to use my burst here? And the answer is probably no, right? Because even if he hits me without any meter, chances are we're just in this position, right? So I'll just let him hit me into this position, and now I get to make a choice. If he hits me again here, now I can choose to burst, and again there's another good reason to try to stop him here. If he hits me through this wall, he'll get a ton of meter for it, and he might be able to use that meter to close out a round and steal the round that I am otherwise fairly solidly holding on to right now. Right? So if we took that hit, we're maybe in the corner with incoming Soul bad guy does more damage than this off of jab jokes. Let's say that we're here now, right? This is still an okay position for us, and if we get hit here, there is a legitimate reason to burst, right? Because if we take this corner combo, even if he doesn't have a lot of tension, at least not enough to do a super on us here, this is a big deal. This gives him the tension that he needs to be very aggressive against us during the round reset, and it gives him a huge advantage that we might want to try to take away from him by just bursting in this situation, because we would rather be in this situation here than have full burst but be in a situation where Soul's the one with all the meter and we don't have any of it. So again, there's a potential option to burst here. And a lot of times what I see is that somebody gets hit and they just, they burst. They just, oh, got hit, better burst. And you don't always want to do that. You're not paying attention to why you're bursting. It's just, oh, got hit, want to burst. Want to play game. And sometimes you don't have to do that, right? You're gonna get hit by like a couple jabs into a slide or something. Is it really worth bursting that? Like, sure, May gets a good setup off of it. There are definitely some arguments here, but if you weren't thinking about it, or particularly if it's round start, right, and this happens. Is it really worth bursting this right off the bat? Like, don't you want to try to at least see what May's mix-up is going to be and figure out what kind of a player she is? And then, if you know, then maybe that's a perfectly good burst point. You're like, yeah, I just need to get the pressure against this player because if I'm on the offense, they don't block and I'll just win. All right, cool, great. You did it with purpose. That's fine. But if you get hit by this, and that's the amount of damage you take, or even, that, and that's the amount of damage you take. You're taking 60 damage, and you decide you're going to burst that. Well, now you don't have your burst. Now you don't have that choice to make anymore. And so there's an opportunity cost here for, getting hit by a jab and bursting. And I see so many people do this, and it makes sense to do once in a while, I think, just to keep it up, as an option, but it happens so often. So, you see, now we've used two resources in tandem to decide what we're doing. And in fact, we've talked about a third one, which is the rounds. So obviously, if if you're gonna die to a combo and it's the final round, or it's your last round, bursting becomes a much better option. You want to 50-50 that pretty consistently to make it so that your opponent has to guess whether or not they need to bait your burst. And, you know, the highest variance for you, which is good because your opponent is winning, is to do it about half the time and then not do it about half the time. And that makes it so that it's tough for them to know what to do. So, these resources you see are now informing our decisions. Okay, it's round start, we both have all full hit points. You know, Soul goes for a move that whiffs here, like a jab or something to try to beat out, or a 6P to try to beat out the Dolphin. We don't do it, we just run up and hit this. How many people burst that? Like half the people burst that, and I think that means they're not paying attention to their resources. They just, I got hit, want to play. And so they hit the burst button, and now, if they get hit again, they don't have the opportunity to just hit the I want to play again button. And sure, the argument can go that I don't have a resource here, right? I don't have tension, so this is a free burst. I can't really do too much about it, you know, except not push a button afterwards, which off a jab is a possibility. I can just bait the burst here, because jabs are fast enough and they recover fast enough that they can never be hit by a psych burst if you just jab and then block. So absolutely this is an option. But against something like, say, a kick, it changes everything, right? I now am going to get hit by the burst if I don't cancel into something, and I don't have anything I can cancel into that works. Unlike with Slash, where I can jump, which allows me to block, I don't have that here. In fact, I think Slash is just fast enough in general, and some of the kicks are too, although I think Maze is slow enough that you hit this. But, you know, you're not making an informed decision here. You're bursting something that can bait a burst, even when I have no meter. That doesn't give me a whole lot, even if I get it. And now you don't have that option when you get hit by like the counter hit 6-8, and now you're dead. So that is very important. And then of course the risk gauge, we'll talk about that a little bit. So if we get like a decent combo here, so let's say we get a good combo here against Soul, so just something like that. I don't even want to break him through the wall because it takes time. So we did 174 damage there. So if we crank the risk, if we just bring that to like crazy levels real quick, it goes from 174 to... Oh, we missed it. To 251 for the exact same combo. You see, and we got a counter hit starter because when you're at full risk, every hit is guaranteed a counter hit, and not just a counter hit, but a special counter hit that lets you do stuff you normally can't do. So you'll see here that I can jab, and then I can go into kick slide, and that works. But if we take our risk gauge and we bring it back down to normal, and then I just put him to standard counter hit, you'll see that we don't get the thwom, right? We just get a regular counter hit. There's no crazy, you know, uber counter hit that fills up the whole screen and screams counter and makes the beat drop. It's just a regular counter hit, and I can't get a kick off of this. I can try as much as I want, it's never going to combo. So risk also informs the decision, right? So now we can go back to our burst meter and decide, do we want to burst or not, and maybe the risk informs our decision. Maybe the risk changes whether or not this combo kills. So now it's very important for us to pay attention to what we want to do with our resources and how we want to spend them. Maybe we're seeing that our risk is getting cranked and it's not all the way up yet, but it's pretty close and we don't want to deal with that anymore. Well, we've got options for that, right? We've got YRC options, for example. So if we've got a little bit of meter, let's give ourselves a little bit of meter here on both sides. Let's say 50% for each. And now we each have one option that we get to choose to do here. So once we reset. Yeah, there we go. So now we've got attention, and now we've got all these different options again. If we see that our opponent has got burst, we might want to try to bait a burst. If we get this hit here, we might try to bait the burst. We might say there's no way that he's letting us get this hit for free. This does way too much damage, especially if he's got some risk cranked. Like this, off of a risk starter, is just the end of days for Soul. So he doesn't want that. And you can also make a decision based upon the counter hit. So one of the nice things about the freeze is it kind of like brings out the human element a little bit. Because a lot of times when you're getting the counter hit and it just says that and you know that it's going to be a huge combo, like in a lot of games, it'll just say counter and you know, oh man, this is going to hurt a lot and I don't want to deal with that. You'll just, like, you're not thinking about it as much. You're like, alright, where do I want to burst this combo? You're still sort of thinking about what you want to do, but when this happens, it like turns off your monkey brain and you're just like, must burst counter hit! So, it's an interesting little, like, psychology experiment. I don't know if it's true, but it definitely feels like when you get one of these, like, the world stops things, like those ones especially, when it just brings it across the whole screen, it's like, you got counter hit by a heavy. Those elicit a lot of bursts, so I will often do that and see, and even if they don't burst right away, you see that we still get a combo. So the super fast burst is just almost always wrong, because even if I wait for a second to decide whether or not they're going to do a burst before I do my combo, I still get the combo. So at the very least, you gotta like delay your knee-jerk reaction at least until the point where they're gonna be swinging at you again. So, you know, another option here is, you know, is the risk going to be a big deal? Am I going to get hit really bad? And that maximum risk, if you can get it, which is pretty unlikely, always gives you that bomb counter. And so, you know, if I am seeing that a lot of people are just insta-bursting the huge counter hit when they see it, and they see a big risk counter hit, even if it's off of a jab or something, if it pauses the game and puts counter across the entire screen and drops the beat, I might just use my meter to see whether or not they want to burst there. Like 50 meter to see whether or not they burst there is probably still a good investment, and if they do, we're going to get it right back by sending them through this wall. So that's also something you got to think about. So this tension allows you to do some cool stuff. Another thing that it lets you do, of course, is the YRC. So you can see that if we have Soul block a button here, that he can do some random counterattack that I don't want him to do. Probably was testing stuff. So you see that he can YRC here. And now YRC has similar properties to burst. So you see we get... Oh, he doesn't have the meter. You can see that if we get hit by it, we're kind of stuck in the time loop and it's bad times. But if we block this, he is very minus. And I think he's in counter hit state. And so now we get to make that choice. You see, now he's used his YRC and he's made his choice, and then we get a counter hit that we wouldn't get otherwise. And now we get to choose. Are we going to try to see if he's baiting, if he's doing his burst, and that kind of thing. If you're paying attention to this, you'll know in between rounds, okay, last time he had his burst in the situation and I got a huge counter hit, he just bursted immediately. So this time, since I've got 50 meter myself, I'm just going to YRC it, or to RC it, sorry, and just see what he does. And if he gets the burst, then cool, and if he doesn't, then I'll do a combo. And if he bursts later in, then cool, he's a strong player. He's making good decisions about his resources, and that's kind of the point. So that's kind of what I'm going to be trying to look for this week as we play, and I hope to see you there.